I'm Ulaanbaatar, you're watching News Mongolia on MNB World. And for our top stories we have: the General Election Commission of Mongolia issues temporary membership cards to elected candidates. The newly elected Parliament of Mongolia convened for its first session. Mongolian parliamentary elections highlight need for further electoral reforms. For other news, stay tuned. On July 1st, the General Election Commission issued temporary membership cards to the candidates who won in the 2024 parliamentary elections. Chairman of the General Election Commission, Bilgirnarang, highlighted the successful execution of the regular parliamentary elections held on June 28th, which saw a voter turnout of 69.85%.
These elections were notable for being the first to elect 126 members using a combined system following the recent amendment to the Constitution of Mongolia. This approach represented a significant shift in the election process's organizational and legal landscape. Chairman of the General Election Commission, Bilgirnarang, stated that the elections were conducted in full compliance with the Constitution, the law on Parliament, and other relevant laws and regulations. On June 30th, the GEC convened to review the voting results. According to Article 75.5 of the Law on Parliamentary Elections, the GEC confirmed the election of 78 candidates who received the most votes in their respective constituencies and 48 elected members from the list based on party election results.
This is the first time Mongolia is electing 126 members of parliament following the adoption of the new law. Social insurance reforms were made. They require some modification and improvements, so we will work on that. We will be the opposition power and voice of the people in case the ruling party fails in its duty.
We'll work on policies to make economic development and export income more accessible to all parts of society.
The fight against corruption is the utmost priority. We need better solutions to prevent it from occurring.
Our party's ideology is based upon green development. In addition, we'll pay special attention to promoting gender equality and supporting women's development. These 78 elected members have been issued with temporary ID cards marking their formal selection as members of parliament. The issuance of these temporary membership cards signifies the official recognition of the elected candidates and their forthcoming roles in the legislative process.
The 2024 parliamentary elections took place on June 28th, marking a historic event as 126 members were elected for the first time under the newly amended Constitution of Mongolia. Today, the first session of the new parliament convened. MNB World special reporter Salonga Irchitbatar has the details.
In a ceremony held at Government Palace, new members of the Mongolian parliament were sworn in alphabetically from 10 a.m. The event was witnessed by a distinguished delegation of diplomatic missions in Mongolia, underscoring the international interest in the nation's democratic process. A robust media presence highlighted the significance of the 2024 parliamentary elections, with 36 journalists and reporters from 15 renowned foreign and international agencies covering the proceedings. This extensive coverage reflects the global interest in Mongolia's political landscape. The first session of the newly elected parliament was opened by the President of Mongolia, who addressed the assembly with a poignant speech emphasizing the importance of their roles at this pivotal time. The 2024 parliamentary elections were notable for their inclusivity, featuring candidates from 21 parties and coalitions alongside 42 independent candidates. The elections encompass 13 constituencies across various provinces and districts, with approximately 2.2 million eligible voters participating in the democratic process. As the newly elected members take their oaths, Mongolia stands on the brink of a new political era, with the eyes of the world watching closely.
On June 29th, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe's Election Observation Mission issued its preliminary statements on findings and conclusions. The international observers concluded that Mongolia's parliamentary elections were well run, but marked by the ruling party's advantage, and several fundamental rights encountered limitations.
An efficient organization and free campaigning marked the recent parliamentary elections in Mongolia, though international observers raised concerns about fairness and competitiveness. The Joint Observation Mission from the OSCE Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights and the European Parliament commended the technical aspects of the election while highlighting significant areas for improvement to ensure a level playing field for all candidates. According to the statement from the observers, the elections held on June 28 showcased the legal framework capable of supporting democratic processes. However, they emphasized that further reforms are necessary to safeguard fundamental rights and freedoms fully. Notably, changes to the Constitution in May 2023 aimed to enhance the strength and diversity of Parliament. Despite these amendments, many long-standing ODIHR recommendations remain unaddressed. Ambassador Jennifer Brush, head of the ODIHR Election Observation Mission, praised the new election legislation for increasing political plurality and the representation of women in parliament. However, she also expressed hope that the new parliament would address the ongoing deterioration of freedom of speech and the media. The election offered voters multiple political choices, but established parties had a distinct advantage, partly due to their ability to campaign extensively across the country during the short campaign period. A law requiring candidates to align their election programs with specific government policies also limited freedom of expression and opinion. The campaign period saw a single violent incident resulting in the death of Orhanga Province's Democratic Party head, which is currently under investigation. Approximately 2.2 million citizens were registered to cast their ballot in the elections. According to the preliminary report, the GEC's work was professional and transparent, earning stakeholder trust. It conducted a comprehensive voter information campaign ahead of the elections, contributing to a calm election day across the country. However, observers noted that the layout of polling stations and overcrowding in some areas compromised the secrecy of the vote. Tomasz Zdechowski, head of the EP delegation, highlighted the strong commitment of older voters to participate, contrasting with the lower engagement among younger voters. This demographic discrepancy underscores the need for greater political outreach to younger voters who hold the future of Mongolia in their hands. Zdechowski also noted that the technological advancements in Mongolia's electoral process contributed to transparency and efficiency. Mongolia's diverse media landscape provided extensive coverage of the election, but the lack of in-depth news coverage and analytical reporting hindered voters' ability to make fully informed choices. While the Constitution guarantees freedom of expression, current legislation against the dissemination of false information is being used to prosecute journalists, leading to widespread self-censorship. The International Election Observation Mission was a collaborative effort between the OSCE, Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, and the European Parliament, comprising 199 observers from 30 countries, including 186 ODIHR deployed experts and observers and 13 from the European Parliament.
And here are the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Now let's take a look at international news provided by our partner agencies. The Israeli military claimed it had destroyed a kilometer-long tunnel in Gaza Strip on Monday. The military said in a statement that the tunnel included branches which were used by terrorists to move between different locations underground.
The army added that troops operating in central Gaza Strip over the past few months eliminated approximately 100 terrorists and destroyed more than 100 terrorist structures, weapons storage facilities, observation posts, launch pits, and underground tunnel routes. Hamas has acknowledged building hundreds of kilometers of tunnels across Gaza. One of the main objectives of the Israeli offensive has been to destroy that network, which it says is used by Hamas to move fighters, weapons, and supplies throughout the territory. It accuses Hamas of using civilians as human shields and has exposed many tunnels running near hospitals, mosques, schools, and UN facilities. Israel launched the war after Hamas' October 7th attack, in which militants stormed into southern Israel, killed some 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and abducted about 250. Since then, Israeli ground offensives and bombardments have killed more than 37,700 people in Gaza, according to the territory's health ministry, which does not distinguish between combatants and civilians in its count. The war has largely cut off the flow of food, medicine, and basic goods to Gaza, and people there are now totally dependent on aid. The top United Nations court has concluded there is a plausible risk of genocide in Gaza, a charge Israel strongly denies.
The UK's Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer said recent election results in France and in other countries in Europe showed the need to address the everyday concerns of so many people in the UK who feel disaffected by politics.
From the centre,
Starmer was answering a question on the outcome of the elections in France, where the far right received overwhelming support in the first of a two-round parliamentary ballot.
The lesson that I take from nationalism and populism, wherever it is across Europe, obviously we're seeing the results emerging from France, but we also see the situation in other countries across Europe and across the world. The lesson I take from that is that we need to address the everyday concerns of so many people in this country who feel disaffected by politics, who feel that on this Thursday feel either that the country's too broken to be mended, or that they can't trust politicians because of what the Tories have done after the last 14 years. We have to take that head on, and we have to show on Thursday in the United Kingdom and across Europe and the world that only progressives have the answers to the challenges that are facing us in this country and across Europe. We have to make that progressive cause, but we have to, in making that, understand why it is, certainly in the United Kingdom, after 14 years of chaos and failure, that people do feel disaffected with politics, return politics to service, and continue to make that argument that politics is a force for good. Thank you very much. Thank you all. I'll start giving you this back.
Round 1 propelled the national rally closer than ever to government, but also left open the possibility that voters could yet block its path to power and the all to play for round 2. France is now facing two likely scenarios in what promises to be a torrid last week of high-stakes campaigning. Strengthened by a surge of support that made it the winner, but not yet the overall victor, the national rally and its allies could secure a working majority in parliament in the decisive final round next Sunday, or they might fall short, stymied at the last hurdle by opponents who still hope to prevent the formation of France's first far-right government since World War II. Both scenarios are fraught with uncertainty for France and its influence in Europe and beyond. The UK votes on Thursday in a parliamentary election, and the Labour Party, which leans to the left, is far ahead in most opinion polls.
Why it is, certainly in the United Kingdom, after
Japan deployed an upgraded Earth observation satellite for disaster response and security after it was launched on a new flagship H3 rocket Monday.
Flight mode on.
The H3 No. 3 rocket lifted off from the Tanegashima Space Center on a southwestern Japanese island and released its payload about 60 minutes later as planned, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency said during a live stream. The Advanced Land Observation Satellite 4 is tasked primarily with Earth observation and data collection for disaster response and map making. It's also capable of monitoring military activity, such as missile launches, with an infrared sensor developed by the Defense Ministry. The rocket appeared to fly as planned, and the Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency is expected to give further details at a news conference later Monday. The launch was initially planned for Sunday, but was delayed due to bad weather at the launch site. The Advanced Land Observation Satellite 4 is a successor to the current Advanced Land Observation Satellite 2 and can observe a much wider area. Japan will operate both for the time being.
And here's the weather forecast for the world's major cities. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for staying with us. We'll see you on Wednesday with more stories and updates. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.
Сайн байцгаана үзэгчдээ. Алтай аргамч нэвтрүүлэг энэ удаагийн дугаартаа Монгол улсын өмнөд хойд хоёр солонгос улстай хөгжүүлж ирсэн харилцаа мөн одоо энэ хоёр улсад баримтлсан Монгол улсын гадаад бодлого гэдэг сэдвээр танд хүрч байна. Энэ удаагийн дугаарт хоёр солонгос улсад ажил амьдралынхаа 30 гаруй жилийг зориулсан ахмад дипломат онц бөгөөд бүр эрхтгэлчин Ломб оролцож байна. Иймд бид одоо энэ нэг үндэстэн байгаад хоёр тусгаар болсон энэ хоёр улстай харилцаж ирсэн энэ өвөрмөц харилцааныхаа өөх төөх өрнөл хөгжил ирээдүйн чиг зорилтын талаар ярилцах гэж байгаамаа. Юун түрүүнд бидний урилгыг хүлээж авсан танд баярлалаа.
Баярлалаа. Алтан аргамж нэвтрүүлгийг манай үндэсний телевизээс